Hello and welcome to Dream Big. I'm Hannah Viviers. And today we're going to be speaking to my friend, Jennifer Swanepoel. She is an awesome mom of 2 kids. And she started an organization called Gemstones, which is a teen pregnancy crisis center. And she's joining us today. And I just wanted to show you, before we start the discussion, I just wanted to show you these 2 little babies. And this is what our babies look like at 12 weeks old. And there's been discussion about they're just blobs and they're not much and you can have an abortion at this stage. And then there's some people that say, well, it's a complete person with life in them and we have to do everything we can to preserve that. And those discussions continue and the arguments continue. And what Gemstones is about is not for either or. It really is about focusing on the mom and empowering her, because when she's empowered, then she can make the kind of decision that will not only be good for her, but will also be good for her baby if she does decide to keep that baby. And that's what we're going to be talking to Jennifer about today. A very warm welcome to you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thank you so much for joining us. So I just want to start, I think, from the end, which is Gemstones and how you started it and why you started it more than anything.
Mm-hmm. Why I started it? Well, to be able to start at the end, I suppose we've got to give you a bit of input about the beginning. So the reason I started Gemstones, with a focus on teen pregnancies and teen moms being in a crisis situation, is because I've been there myself. So I was 16 and pregnant and was obviously in a crisis situation, and I've just managed to raise my children, and it's not been easy, but it's been possible. And the reason I want to start the center is to encourage girls who feel that there's no hope for them and that it's impossible to raise their own babies. Just to give them the opportunity and to encourage them to be able to do that.
One of the things you were saying is that while there is so much focus sometimes, on, are you going to have an abortion, are you not going to have an abortion, you want to focus on the mom, because you say if you empower the mom, it's not about compelling her to go either way, but if you empower her, then it's a completely different situation to her.
That's right. So we don't condone abortions, and as you say, we're there to empower the moms, because if you can encourage the moms and if you can give the moms the tools to steer away from thinking that abortion is the only option, then you could perhaps give her the opportunity to look at things like adoption or fostering or other forms of parenting.
Because you were saying to me that what you hope for the center is not just to have these girls come in and you counsel them, which is important, but you'd also like to be able to educate them and to help them finish their school. Just go back, I think you wanted us to start from the beginning. And the reason I wanted us to start with Gemstones and say this is what it's doing and then go back is just to give people a place of where you are right now. But let's just go back when you were 16 and what that experience was like for you and why you have a heart for these girls, and just saying that, this is not something that is completely impossible for them to be able to achieve.
I was 16, I was pregnant, and I was very ashamed, and I was very scared, and I was very confused, and I was also very hopeful in one sense, that might sound strange, but I was, because of who I am. Abortion wasn't something that ever crossed my mind. It was that this is a consequence of an action that I've taken, and I needed to make sure that it turns out the best possible way. And for me, it was absolutely imperative to kind of fix my wrong, if it makes any sense. And I decided to keep my baby, who is now a 17-year-old Caleb, and it was difficult, and there was a lot of shame. I think that for me was the worst thing to deal with, because I did pretty well at school, and I was quite academical, very good on the sports field and so on. And then when I left, and then kind of living in Durban and walking around on the beach, where all the other 16-year-olds are holding surfboards, I've got this huge big belly walking around, and it became a thing where I wouldn't even go to the beach anymore. So it was very difficult. But something in me still said, you know what, besides all of that, I wasn't going to allow for the peer pressure to influence my decision. And
what was that pressure? What were you feeling that people expected from you at that time?
I don't quite know what it was that the people expected of me, but I did know that the one thing they didn't expect was for me to be pregnant at 16. And, you know, there's a lot of the gossiping going around, and the one thing that goes through everybody's heads is, well, you know, there's just another 16-year-old slut who decided to open her legs and fall pregnant. And that generally is what people think, you know. So she wanted to sleep around. Now she's pregnant, and she's just got to bear the consequences of her decisions.
And what was it like, the people that were close to you at that time? Did you have the support, or were they just reflecting what you've just mentioned right now, of people saying, well, she's kind of like fallen into this ditch and she needs to get out of it herself?
I didn't have the support. My family wasn't very supportive at all, actually. They had exactly the same mentality, that this is something that I brought on myself and that I needed to get myself out of it. And so, no, from very close family right through to extended family, there was no support at all whatsoever.
And you said, I mean, you didn't have a place to stay when you found out that you were pregnant.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
There was a place in Durban, close to where Oshaka is now, and it was a place for destitute people. And that's actually where I lived, in a place for destitute people.
Now we have to rewind again a little bit, because how do you're not at home at 16, how did that happen?
All right, so besides doing very well at school, I started meddling in drugs, and it really came about out of curiosity. A friend of mine and myself were at a library, and I actually don't remember why we were there, but I think it was a school project. And we came across a book where it told you exactly how to use different types of drugs, to the T, exactly what it was for, what they called, all the you know, the fancy schmancy terms for it, but exactly how to use it as well. So we decided to start smoking weed, and I got hooked. I did. And she stopped, and I carried on using, and my grandparents who raised me found out about it, and basically I was laying on the bed the one afternoon, and they shook me up and said, we found this in your school bag, and so best you take your bag and go. And I did. And from there I moved in with a bunch of surfers, and the drugging just got worse, and the kinds of drugs just obviously got harder, if that's the right term. And yeah, for me it was, you know, I was at a place where I needed to belong somewhere. So I'd messed up school, I couldn't go back there, and I couldn't be around those kids anymore because, you know, I was doing stuff completely different from what they were doing. And so I kind of gravitated towards that which made me feel good at the time, and that was other druggies. And things just kind of snowballed from there.
One of the things you said to me in one of our conversations, we've talked about this so much, and you were saying that when you're an outcast, you go and you kind of hang out with other outcasts.
That's right. Yeah.
And so now you're in this circle, you are drugging, and this is when you say to me, you find out that you're pregnant. What's the first thought that you had?
The first thought I had was, well, God, if you could make this baby be born normal, then I would change my life around. Because I found out that I was pregnant already 3.5 months into my pregnancy, and I was still using at the time. So there was a big possibility that this baby could have some deficiency, you know, because of my drugs.
So now you've just talked about God, saying, oh God, and you're having this prayer while you are, you know, you're on drugs. What made you even... That, I think, for a lot of people will be kind of very confusing, because here's this person who is living, I mean, I can just imagine this like really slummy, crummy area that you're living in. Am I right? And there's all this drugging that's going on pretty much all day. Because this is the kind of what we get on the movies. I mean, I haven't been in it, but I mean, this is your life. And you find this out, and then you pray in the midst of this. Where did that come from?
I had actually, the place where I was staying at was a Christian institution, a Christian organization, home for homeless people. And but I think the person who had most influence in my life when it came to God was a lady called Meryl, and she was my druggy bestie's mother. And she just said to me that from the day she met me, she said, I will pray for you every day for the rest of my life. And I suppose it was just that knowing that God is there and that I could reach out to him when I needed to.
And why, though, if you're in this place that you're getting this counseling, you're getting, you're in an environment where there seems to be some godly principles that are being taught. How do you then still continue in the life that you were in?
Because the place was for every other outcast in creation. So it was for every other drug addict, homeless person, prostitutes, whoever it was that the world would call outcasts. That's who lived there. And I think if you have 50 team leaders, Christian team leaders, and you have 300 outcasts, it was kind of just difficult to, I don't know, maybe I was just at a place in my life where I wasn't ready to look at what the place was offering, and I was rather still sticking around with what was going on the ground level,
Okay, so now you get to this moment and you say this prayer and you say, all you want is for this baby to be okay. And at that time you're not thinking of what is the way out, of whatever situation I'm in right now. What were you thinking you were going to do? What were your plans?
I really always struggled with not feeling very valued in life, feeling like I really mattered, like I was ever good enough. And I suppose that's where working hard at school and really wanting to be an achiever was very important for me. So failure just wasn't something that I was willing to do, because I always needed to feel that there was something about me that was good enough. And when I found out I was pregnant, it was almost as if, having a baby and having this opportunity for somebody to grow inside of you, that God would even think you worthy of giving you a baby, you're worthy of something. And for me, falling pregnant did something to my self-worth. It did something to the fact that God is giving you a child that is the most prized possession that everybody could ever have. And it's your responsibility to do with this baby the best that you can possibly do. Yeah.
And so what were those months like after that? Because you don't have a job, you're living in this crummy area, you can't go home because your family has pretty much thrown you out. There isn't an income coming in. How did you manage to get through those months and then support your new baby once he came?
We carried on staying at the place for destitute people. And Caleb's father, who I eventually married, he found work in Witbank, and we moved to Witbank, and we stayed there for a year and a half. So Caleb was actually born in Witbank, and so his first year and a half, we were actually together as a couple. Yeah.
I mean, you're one of the most awesome moms that I've met. I just see all the things that you do for your kids. And you were saying that some people are just wired that way. And I don't know, but I mean, at 16, how do you know to be the kind of mom that I've seen you over the years be to your kids?
I don't know. I really don't have an answer for that. It's just who I am. So I think for me, without bringing the mom aspect into it, for me it was just a case of some action needs to be taken, and I can either kind of stick with the mentality of birds of a feather flock together and stay with that kind of a people that I lived with and carry on in that life cycle where the poverty and the drugs and the abuse and all of that kind of a thing, or I can start a whole new life for myself and this new baby,
And there was a time you told me that you were working 3 jobs, just to be able to make ends meet. But what was really interesting to you was that you were saying that you lived in a crummy area, but you would never take your kids. When you went off to work, you would never take your kids to the schools that were in that crummy area, even though it was much more expensive for you to travel wherever it is you were going to get your kids into a good school.
I think, again, it was that I knew that eventually I was going to leave the area, and I knew that there was no ways I was going to raise my children in an area like that. Simply because it's so difficult to get out of that hole once you're in it, And I worked the 3 jobs after Philip and I had separated, and I really did it because, yes, the one salary that I earned just paid for Caleb's school fees to go into an area in Morningside. I don't know, probably because, I don't know, I wouldn't want people to get me wrong, but if you want to be inspired, then you need to be around people that inspire you. And if you want to live a certain standard of life, then you've got to learn from the people who are already living that. Do you know what I mean? And I wanted Caleb to have that. And yeah, just going back to the fact that I knew that eventually we would move out of there, whatever it was that I had to do.
So now, I mean, one of the concerns you said you had when you were carrying this baby and having, 3.5-month pregnancy into this pregnancy, and you have been using drugs, you had the concern that something would be wrong with him, and he was born how?
He was born fine. He got a 10 out of 10 AGPA, and he was a wonderful baby. He was so good that at 3.5 months, when he was 3.5 months old, I actually took him to the doctor, and I said, this baby isn't crying all the time, so I think there's something wrong with his vocal cords, because he was so good. And he was fine.
And I mean, you've told me about, we see each other so often, and you tell me about all the things that he's doing, really brilliant at. You tell me as his mom.
Okay, so he's just brilliant. He's a really, really awesome child. He loves sports. He lives and eats and sleeps and dreams soccer. And he does really, really well. He managed to make first team soccer as a goalkeeper when he was in grade 9. And apparently that hadn't happened in something like 50 years in the history of the school. In grade 9 for a goalkeeper, for such a young boy. He plays first team hockey. He's in the drama club. He won actor of the House Play Award, and then they entered him into some other competition, and there he won Best Actor Award as well. And he's, besides what he's managed to achieve on that level, he's just a level-headed boy who knows what he wants in life. He doesn't go out and party all night and get drunk and do the things that the average teenager would do. He's just turned out to be a really good boy.
And I think you don't want that either, for this conversation to either be about keeping the baby or not keeping the baby, because that's not what Gemstone is about. But when you look back on your life, despite the challenges, despite that time you had to live in a rubbish area, work 3 jobs for your kids, you look at your life now. How do you feel about the decision that you made to keep him at the time?
I feel that I would not have done it any other way. I think that with the lifestyle that I was living at the time, if I didn't fall pregnant with Caleb, I don't know where I would be right now. So in a sense, Caleb saved me from a very destructive life that I could have continued living.
So now I want to talk about years later, because you were telling me that Gemstones is something that you've had in your heart since I've met you, and it's been a long time now, Jen. But you say to me that you've been wanting to start Gemstones, to get it going for a really long time. It's been on your heart, that you just want to reach out to girls who are in the situation that you were in 17 years ago. And you've actually started it now. What has the response been like? What has been your experience so far?
There's 2 sides to the coin on the response side of things, because a lot of people see it as just a ministry that is so needed. Statistics show that there are 42 million babies aborted annually around the world. And so the response has been from a certain group of people. You would hear, well, you know what, this is something that they've done themselves, and funding becomes a problem because, again, coming back to these young sluts who just want to sleep around, funding becomes a problem because they would rather channel that money into other NGOs, often forgetting that a lot of these babies are born because of rape and incest. But I must say, majority of the people have been very positive, seeing it as a ministry, seeing it as something that's very, very needed in this country, giving the girls the opportunity to be counseled, and giving them the opportunity to, or it's their right to get the counsel before they make a decision, whatever the decision is, what they wanted to do with this
So
unborn
you wanted
baby.
to talk about the slogan for Gemstones, because I think that says a lot about what your organization does.
Yes, so the slogan is Gemstones, which we know are very precious stones. And the slogan is, where each individual is precious, both the baby and the mother, the unborn baby and the expectant mommy. So it's not a pro-life organization, it's not about saving babies, it's not about walking around with big banners that say, stop abortion, stop the murder, stop the killings, because we don't know what that mommy is going through and what sanctity of life is meaning for her personally, you know. So that's why I chose Gemstones.
If a young girl comes to you and she has had an abortion, would you still support her?
Yes. You find often that a girl who has had an abortion will probably go for a second and a third and a fourth. And abortion is a big decision. It's a very courageous decision, to be able to make that decision, to be able to put yourself before that unborn baby. And they will need somebody to talk to. They will need somebody to walk that journey, that post-abortion journey with them. So yes, the doors are open for them.
When you say that, I have an aunt who works at an orphanage, and she was saying to me 4 times now where this mom has been pregnant, had the baby, and just dumps them there. So when you talk about 4 times she's done this. So when you talk about breaking that cycle of, because it's almost like in some places you're just probably not even in the right space of mind, where I'm thinking, I've got my 2 kids and my children are my life. And for some people, that's not what they're facing. That's not the emotion they have when they look at their resources or what's available. And from what I'm hearing from you, you want to break that cycle of, if you've done it once, it's probably going to happen again.
Yes. It is, because it becomes a form of contraception. Culturally, a lot of the cultures in South Africa, the ladies or the girls are not allowed to use contraceptive, for whatever their traditional reasons are for that. And you often find that those are the girls who will use abortion as means of contraception.
I want to show these, because you gave these to me, and I was sitting in my moms and babes class and showed these to the other moms, and they were just so fascinated.
This little baby over here is the blob of tissue that they tell us is inside of us at 12 weeks pregnant. So my little baby was 2 weeks older than this when I found out I was pregnant, and he had eyes and a nose and a mouth and arms and legs, and he had a heartbeat, which means that he had life, which means that he's not just the blob of tissue that we often get told we have at 12 weeks, and that it's legal in this country to have the abortion.
When you show the moms that come to you and you show them that this is what your baby looks like at 12 weeks, what is their reaction?
Shock, absolute shock. You can, and it manifests physically. You can actually see the color drain out of these people's faces, or the blood kind of rushing upwards, whichever way. But they, especially for girls and moms who haven't had any other children, they don't realize that at 12 weeks old this baby has got eyes and a nose and a mouth and feet and legs,
and it's exactly what it looks like.
And it looks exactly like that, because they just told it's a blob of tissue, and that it's really not a person.
When you're telling your story, though, what I found really interesting when you were talking about how you feel as though your son actually saved you, do you tell your story to them?
Sometimes, not always, because not everybody's reason for coming for counsel is always the same. So you will sometimes find a 40-year-old mum who has 3 children. The husband's just been retrenched 3 months ago. They don't have an income. She's found out she's 5 months pregnant, and to feed another mouth is just absolutely impossible for them. So everybody's circumstances are different. Yeah.
But when you talk to them, when you talk to teens particularly, because that's what your crisis center is for, when you talk to teens particularly, do some of them see the possibility of, wait a minute, this might not be the end of my life. My being pregnant doesn't mean that's it for me. There's still a future. I can still dream. I can still achieve the things that I want to achieve.
Yeah. You know, they do at a certain stage. You know, every girl coming into the centre has an SOS. So they are scared, they are overwhelmed. And it depends on where they're at this critical stage in their life, that they will be able to see light at the end of this very dark tunnel. So that's why the counsel is needed. And the journey is... walking the journey with them is needed. It's not a case of just giving them the options and saying, right, well, have a lovely day now and let me know how it goes, you know. And many of them do. I just recently, a couple of weeks back, a young girl who was 32 weeks pregnant had tried everything to abort her baby, from going to backstreets guys who gave her a pill at 250 Rand, which often they just actually give them Panado. To taking mooties and all kinds of things, and we chatted, and I actually did share my story with this young girl. And she recently, I don't know, I mean, my number has changed since I've last chatted with her, and she managed to track me down and sent me a picture of her little boy, whom she called Solomon, and it was just awesome to see. And she just said, your story inspired me to keep my baby. And you know, she found a job at a fish and chips shop where she's cutting up potatoes all day and she's supporting her little baby. And that's a story of encouragement, and so there's hope for her and this little one, you know.
And this is part of what you've said you want to do, is just to be able to equip these girls, help them to finish school. And you're at this place now where you are just doing the counseling because you're not at the place where you would like to be, is in sometimes house these young girls and sometimes be able to educate them. But share with us what your overall vision for Gemstones is.
So it's a very big vision. The big dream is to really start up what they call mother homes. There aren't any of them in this country. A girl decides that she wants to keep her baby, but the situation at home is just so dismal that she feels it's impossible. And so it's to meet the girl, to find out what her needs are at the time, and to see if we could meet them. And if the needs are that she needs to further her education, finish school, go to tertiary education, to help her keep this baby. Because it's one thing saying, you know what, there's adoption, there's abortion, and there's parenting and fostering, and then what? So for me is to fill the gap where the and then what comes in, where you say, we can give you this opportunity, you can come and live in this home. There will obviously be certain requirements that have to be fulfilled. So you would have to want to, first of all, obviously finish schooling. A lot of the schools, they don't accept the girls back to school. Homeschool them, fight for their right to be back at school, get sponsors to sponsor them to be able to go to university or college or whatever it is that they're wanting to do. And so not just encouraging them to keep their baby, but encouraging them to give themselves and this unborn child a good life, a decent life. And just educate them and teach them life skills, you know, how to sew, how to budget, how to cook, how to clean, how to care for a baby, parenting skills, offering them the support that they need. So basically giving them all the tools that, for example, I didn't have to be able to parent the child as best as possible.
You talked about how your family and just the people around you when you fell pregnant, just how you know, the disapproval and the disappointment and just this exactly what you've described of how they view you, you know, as being this loose girl that's just gone around and stepped around and gotten herself pregnant. But other than that, you say that when you would go to hospitals for your checkups, just how badly you were treated, and that 17 years later, that hasn't changed. People think it has, and it's become more acceptable, but that hasn't changed. What you went through, and that being put on the outside and being judged, and even the people that are supposed to be caring for you when you go to hospital still treating you terribly.
Yeah, it hasn't changed. Sadly, it hasn't changed. There's still a stigma. You know, it's not 50 years ago where we would be sent off to the granny in Cape Town, but in the meantime, there's a home where you go and stay, and the baby is born, the baby gets given up for adoption. It's a closed adoption, so you actually never know what happened with your child. It's not that bad, but the stigma is still there. Like you say, you still get labeled a loose person who just went and slept around and now you're pregnant. And you know what? I'm the nurse or the doctor or the person in charge here, and you're just a little 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 12-year-old, have they ever bothered asking, oh, why are you pregnant? What are the circumstances around you falling pregnant? They don't. They don't take the time to actually counsel and get to know the person.
I've found, because I so believe in Gemstones, and you're going to be having this event, and I'm going to be hosting one of the tables, and I found that as I tell people about what this is, it's sometimes difficult because I don't know where to start, because I'm not going through it, but I already feel that just by saying it, and especially in some of the circles where a lot of my friends are believers, not that they do, but I just feel as though, I don't know if it's just me and it's just what's going on in my head, but even as a person who's just talking about the organization, I already feel as though people are kind of like, and now what? So now you're telling us to do what? There's these girls that have fallen pregnant. What should we do? What would you like people to know about the work that you're doing, and what would you like people to know about the girls that come to your center and seek your help?
I think it's important that people know, first of all, that I personally don't promote abortion. I don't condone abortion. It's not what I believe is right, and that's because of my Christian beliefs. But that we don't judge the girls who do decide to do that. If they at a place in their life where they feel that this is the only way out for me, until you run a mile in those techies, you can't make decisions for that young person. So it's for the pro-abortionists not to judge the work that we do, and it's for the anti-abortionists not to judge the fact that we don't encourage them not to have the abortion. So it's to kind of really just understand that we are here to support this young person where they're at in their life at the time, to the best of our abilities at that very moment. So it's to walk a journey with them, to befriend them, to stand alongside them, because the world right now is against them and they need one person to believe in them. You know, every single person inside them has the ability to do remarkable things in this world. And if you have somebody who can encourage you and believe in you, to help you believe in yourself, that already is one step in the right direction of this young girl making a decision that will be best for that little child.
So now you're sitting in your home, you've got this beautiful home in a beautiful area, your kids are going to amazing schools, you started a business, a successful one as well. When you look back at that time, what has been your support to be able to get to where you are now?
My belief in God has been my lifeline. Without that, I really don't think that half of this could have been done. And my good friends like you and people who encourage me when I feel discouraged, and good friends and God in a nutshell. Yeah.
A few weeks ago you were at my house, you're having tea and you're telling me about how you just cannot wait to get this going. You had already, working in I think there was a time when you'd been given a little bit of office space at a public hospital, and then you weren't there anymore, and you were just saying you just want to get this going, this has been on your heart for so long. And I want you to share what happened. And I was saying to you, what I say to you is you just have to step out and start. I was saying to somebody this week that talking to them about Gemstones, and I was saying, so I'm telling my friend that all she has to do is start, and it's easy to encourage someone when you're not the one that's having to do the work.
It's like a big leap of faith.
Exactly. And so from that place of just like, I don't know where to go, I don't know how I'm going to start this, because you don't have the money to fund exactly what you want to do, and I need you to please share what happened with you just finding this place, because that is just such a testimony, I think, of what you were saying, of doors being opened for you when you step out.
Yes, it was absolutely amazing. So I was driving my car up on Deckers Road, kind of thinking I'm just going to drive and I'm just going to pray. And I just said, Lord, we need somewhere to counsel from, and I need you to give me somewhere. And I drove past a church, which is also a community centre, on the corner of Perth and on Deckers Road. And I have driven past that place hundreds of times going to the hospital where I was helping out. And I've never actually been inside, and I drove into the parking lot and I stopped, and there were some youngsters hanging around outside, and I got out and I asked for the person in charge, said the lady wasn't there, whom I then found out is also the pastor of the church. And the guy gave me her number, and I phoned her and very briefly explained to her what I would like to come and chat with her about, which I did. And she just said to me, they've been at a place where they've had something like this going on, but not really with the pregnant teens, just really with the teenagers. And there was a lady that was running that, but things weren't working out so well, and she was actually going to shut it down because they could use that space for something different. They have a community center and they have a hospice, and it's a really awesome job that this lady is doing there. And we got chatting, shared my story with her, showed her the babies, told her exactly the angle that we counsel from, and she just said she just believes that this is so meant to be. And I said to her, okay, well, if she has the space that she could rent out to me, that would be wonderful. And she just said to me, you know what, you can just have the space. And it's a beautiful, beautiful large room with a bathroom, lovely, beautifully furnished with pastel colors, and just such a peaceful environment. And yeah, so we got our office space for Gemstones. It's about 500 meters from the one government hospital on the left hand side, about 300 meters from the other government hospital. Lots of traffic. You've got to go past there to go to one of them. And people will know that Gemstones Pregnancy Crisis Centre is inside.
This is a place that's just been given.
Just given.
Yeah, because you just stepped out.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, we've talked a lot. I mean, you're a believer and I'm a believer, but that's not what, it's exactly the same thing that you're saying about you're not against abortion, you're not pro-abortion. That's not what the organization is about. At the same time, it's not just for young people that might find themselves in a tough place who are believers.
Mm. It's for anybody who finds himself in a crisis pregnancy situation. No matter what color you are, no matter what religion you are, no matter what status in life you have. I have counseled girls who live in shacks and first-year medical students from very wealthy families. So there's no barriers, there's no boundaries, there's just, this is who we are, and we just want to draw alongside you, and we just want to be able to help clear all the fog that's stopping you from making a decision that you might regret, or making a decision that you don't know that you can actually make, that you could possibly run with.
Mm. When you look back on your life, Jennifer, and Gemstones being a part of that, what would you like to have achieved with this organization?
Well, I sometimes think to myself, because I'm a very, very big dreamer. A friend of mine once said to me, we went to Sun City for the first time together, and I said to her, this place is like small. It's smaller than I thought it would be. And she goes, that's just like you, I thought, wow, look at the size of this place. I can't believe that there's this massive Sun City right in our country, And I'm thinking, it's so tiny. Like, surely Sulkers could have done something bigger. And that's just my very big dream, is for Gemstones to encourage other people to do the same thing countrywide, on the whole of Africa, creating centres and creating mother homes for girls to go to further their education and give them what they need to be able to raise their babies.
Mm. Mm. Is there anything that you want to share with us, and that's just in your heart, and might not have asked you that question, but you cannot leave this conversation without sharing that bit with us?
I think if I could say one thing, and the whole world could hear me say this, is, it's such a corny saying, don't judge a book by its cover, and I think if I could think up a new one, I would. But don't judge these girls just because they are 16 and pregnant, or 14 and pregnant. We have 14-year-old boys and 60-year-old fathers who look at pornography. We have alcoholic fathers and mothers. We have drug addicts who raise children. We have child molesters. We have murderers in this world. And it is just so very, very, very unfair for young girls who fell pregnant to be so ostracized. And that's something I would like the world to change their view on.
Mm. Mm. What do you think is going to help that happen, just in terms of changing that view? Because it is a mindset, I think, that we've had for so long, and even the most well-intentioned, amazing people, this might still be an area where they're just like, but, you know, they do feel, you know, as though that's something that you've done to yourself. Now deal with it. How are we going to go about, you know, just getting to that place where we look at this in the way that you see it, you know, even though we haven't experienced what you went through at 16, but we have a heart for it and we can understand.
Getting to know the person, getting involved in organizations like Gemstones. Gemstones is not the only pregnancy crisis center. There are many of them around. Get involved. Find out why these things are happening, you know. And again, it's an education on its own. It's not an academic education, but it's an education where we need to know what goes on around the four walls of our little homes that we live in. Getting to know the people, getting to know the struggles out there, do you know, and just really getting involved. Yeah.
Jennifer, thank you so much. I think you are going to do absolutely well with Gemstones, and just so far what you've done has been absolutely amazing. And I forgot to actually say this, is you're raising money.
Yes.
At this lunch that you're going to have. When is it going to be? Where is it going to be? How can people attend if they want to?
All right. They can actually go to the Gemstones Facebook page, and all the details will be posted on there. It will be in Joburg, and the funds that we are raising at the moment are for two girls. The one girl is already 23 years old, but she had her baby at 16 as well. And she's just always wanted to study education, and she's just never managed, you know. So the funds, a portion of the funds will go towards her wanting to study next year, and we would like to pay for her first year studies, obviously by the end of this year. And the other young girl has, she found out she was pregnant while she was writing, before she started, actually in matric. And she also decided to keep her baby, and she's also wanting to study education. And so the purpose of this big fundraiser is for those two girls, and to give them the opportunity to raise funds. But yes, anybody wanting to know any more can go to the Gemstones Facebook page and find the details there.
Oh, Jennifer, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your story. And we really do wish you well.